I'm Peter Levine, the director of the Defense Management Institute, and we're here today as a part of a series of interviews of individuals who have made significant contributions to improving the management of the Department of Defense. Today, we're speaking with the Honorable Christine Fox, who served as the first Director of Cost Assessment and Program Evaluation from 2009 to 2013, and as Acting Deputy Secretary of Defense from 2013 to 2014. Since her retirement from the department, Secretary Fox has held senior positions at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. Throughout her career inside government and out, Christine has shown a rare capability as both a brilliant analyst and a strong leader.
So the role of CAPE inside the department is actually to help the deputy secretary and the secretary make the big budgetary decisions, whether it's a program or the budget as a whole, and make the trade-offs. It's an analytic position, it's independent, it's not, CAPE should not have an axe to grind, should not have a kind of a thing they are pushing. They should not be advocates for anything. I know that that's a high bar and it's not always met, but that's the goal. And CAPE should always be looking for facts and data and analysis. And the role of CAPE within the department is to present those facts, that analysis, so that everybody can look at it. And then the deputy and the secretary can make informed decisions. That's the role. I actually think, so first of all, it does make it harder, right? It does, when you have two bosses, right? You have the Secretary of Defense as a boss, and you have the Congress and the SASC in particular as a boss. You've got two bosses, and that can put the director of CAPE in a somewhat difficult position. But that's kind of true for all the political appointees in the department. The fact that CAPE has all the data that sometimes Congress wants to get their hands on, and the secretary might not want Congress to see it until they've worked through what to do with it, at least, that can put CAPE in a particularly difficult position. For me personally, I did not find it as difficult as I feared it would be. I admit that having arrived and getting called to testify on the Joint Strike Fighter program about 1 month after I got there, knowing absolutely nothing, and it was a very unpleasant hearing, that was not my favorite day, okay? So that's not a fun part of being Senate confirmed. On the other hand, I think the opportunity to have a direct access, I mean, you were there, right? I would come over to see you once or twice a year with a little pile of analyses that I wanted to share. I hope my intent was to give you and therefore the rest of the SASC insight into some of the issues we were grappling with, how we were grappling with them, get your feedback before it was a crisis, bring that. I would able then to bring that back to the deputy secretary. And it could, if handled well, I think there's an opportunity by making Cape Senate confirmed to help build better relationships between Congress and the department. Yes, there's a risk. I absolutely think there's a risk. And I think that it's something that everybody, the deputy and frankly the Congress, needs to appreciate, that CAPE has to sort of work their way through that risk. CAPE has to stay objective and balanced. The department doesn't always make decisions based on that objective analysis. They can't always make decisions. Sometimes the objective analysis suggests something that's politically untenable or against administration direction or unaffordable. They can't do it. So if somebody that's got a different view gets a hold of the independent analysis, it can make it harder. Yeah, well, I'll cut to the chase. I'm very skeptical about it. The reason is that a- as an analyst, one of the first questions I often get starting a new problem is, what are your metrics? What metrics are you going to use? Well, if I already knew that, it wouldn't be a very interesting problem for analysis, right? If you know what metrics are going to determine good and bad, it's not an analytic problem, it's just tracking, right? I don't think we do the analysis to determine what are those driving factors, what are the critical components that you want to track in terms of metrics. So you just jump to metrics, you're just tracking stuff. You don't know if it's the right stuff, it's the most important stuff. What you really want to do is do analysis with data. You want to be data driven, but just calculating metrics becomes sort of an exercise that doesn't tell you a lot. Certainly. I actually think the system is pretty strong. I so I believe the strengths are in the category of giving the department's leadership the opportunity together to look at these key issues. And um, that happens when we review the service POMS inputs, but it also happens through the issue paper process. Now, issue paper processes can be a hard process to love because anybody and his brother can write an issue paper and then it goes to CAPE and they get stacks and they have to look at them all, and that's clearly not the goal. But when it's right, and I did have a few years where I got Secretary Lynn and Secretary Carter to help me um, make them more focused on big issues. The the department leadership through PPB has a chance to look at things that are not in any service palm. They just fall through the crack. It's in the seams, or it cuts across, or it's small dollars. That's another thing that I think is really important. And as we think about the need for the department, for example, to be more innovative, an awful lot of the investments in innovation that's needed now are small dollars. And so they don't get the attention of the senior leaders because they basically only have time for the big muscle movements of the budget. Those are the big programs. So you miss the opportunity to say, oh, wait, no, look, this small investment could make a big difference. Or this cut in this small program, even though it's small, it has a long tail and it could make a big difference. So the PPB process, that's one thing I think is a real strength, is that it brings the department leadership together to look at issues together, not in the silos of the department. They have to make trade-offs. Is you should go into the department with some things you want to do. You need to love that department and love this country and understand it isn't going to be easy. But go in there and do everything you know how to do and can do to achieve those goals. And not worry about whether you're taking risks or who you're angering, or maybe somebody yelled at you today, because it's going to happen. You just kind of go in understanding everybody there is trying to make a difference and you're trying to make a difference. So do everything you can to make that difference. And don't worry very much about how it looks or who yelled at you or are you in trouble or has this affected your next opportunity. Try to push those worries and thoughts aside, and I think you'll be successful.